Many years after the destruction of Earth, humans wander around in space stations or try to relocate to other planets. A man named Damon and his daughter C live in a rented spaceship attached to a station. However, their financial situation has been awful since C's mother died, and Damon has to take care of C alone. One day, Damon receives a risky yet very well-paid job. They need to go to a particular alien moon to look for a very precious gem mine. It is a risky move because the atmosphere there is very toxic, but they really need the money to survive. C is worried because they only have 3 cycles before the space station shuts this line down and they could get stranded, but Damon promises that's plenty of time to finish the job. After resting properly, the duo takes off in the spaceship. However, a technical malfunction suddenly hits them during the descent and cripples the lander. Damon releases the parachutes, and after lots of shaking and falling at great speed, the spaceship crash lands. C checks the map and they realize they've landed far away from their original prospecting site. Thankfully, they have suits with air filters attached, so they can go and look for the mining site without worrying about the toxicity. They also bring a rifle just in case. They wander around for a while, and eventually they come across an old mining location. So Damon decides to check it in case the last people left anything. Using a knife, he makes a hole in the ground and throws a special liquid, then puts his hand inside the hole, takes out a white bulbous mass, and proceeds to show C how it must be carefully cut to remove the gem. Otherwise, the very dangerous liquid will damage the gem. If they aren't careful, this liquid may even cause an explosion. C realizes this gem is expensive enough to clear all their loans. However, when she asks her father to return to their ship and leave, Damon refuses. He explains somewhere around here there's something called a queen's lair, which is filled with lots of gems that would make them rich. The duo keeps on moving to find the original digging site, but suddenly they hear the voice of 2 other people in the area. Damon tells C to sneak around while he approaches the men, learning that they're also looking for gems. Ezra and his partner hit Damon and make him fall before hurting him to make him confess where his ship is. Instead of giving them that information, Damon makes them an offer. He's mining gems for a group of mercenaries that hired him, but if they work together, they could kill the mercenaries and keep the gems for themselves. When he mentions the Queen's Lair, Ezra accepts the deal, and the trio starts moving. When the other 2 are turned around, Damon whispers into his comms to tell C to ambush them when she has the chance. Very carefully, C sneaks around the forest, waiting for the right moment to strike. When the men stop to check their equipment, C comes out and aims the rifle at them. Damon immediately reacts, making them drop their weapons and their bags. Then Damon steals the gun from Ezra and uses it to force him to open his little box. Inside, Damon is happy to find more gems, and he gets ready to steal them away when suddenly Ezra's partner reacts, and he and Damon shoot each other at the same time. Ezra's partner falls dead to the ground while Damon is wiggling in pain, but Ezra retrieves his gun and kills him too. Terrified, C runs through the forest, only stopping once to catch her breath. Eventually, she returns to her spaceship and tries to take off, but the damage is too big and the system doesn't work, filling the room with smoke. Not knowing what else to do, C keeps herself busy by watching the trees, listening to music, reading her notebook, and looking at a picture of her mother. She also tries to look for food around the spaceship, but there are only a few scraps left. After a few hours, C suddenly hears a noise and quickly takes out the rifle to discover Ezra entering the spaceship. She quickly shoots and hurts him on the arm, but she doesn't have the goods to kill him. So instead, she gives him a medical kit and offers him a deal. He'll take her to his ship and out of this moon, or she'll kill him. Ezra proceeds to take care of his wound while he explains he also lost his ship, but he offers a different deal. He can pretend to be Damon and go with her to the Queen's lair to trick the mercenaries, promising an even split of the gems. C has no choice but to accept. Afterward, the duo goes out to the forest again, and C makes Ezra walk ahead while keeping him at gunpoint. Ezra tries to start a conversation, but C refuses to tell him her name or show him the map with the location of the mine. He changes the subject to ask about the mercenaries, but he is frustrated to realize Damon didn't tell C anything, pointing out he had been a bad father if he couldn't trust his daughter like that yet, still brought her along. Moments later, when they stop to rest and change the filters of the suits, Ezra notices his wound is getting worse. Then they keep crossing the forest, while Ezra tells the story of how his ship broke down, but suddenly, C trips and drops the gun. Terrified, she picks it up and hurries to point it at Ezra again, but he never attempts anything. A few minutes later, Ezra needs to rest again, not feeling well. At that moment, they see a figure in the distance, and Ezra explains it's a settler, one of the few humans that chose to live here. He makes C put the gun down to avoid trouble, and this causes the settler to leave without a word. However, Ezra says they should follow him because they'll need his help. It turns out the planet's toxic dust has entered his wound and it's festering, so he'll need medicine. With Ezra getting weaker by the second, the duo follows the stranger through the forest until they find the small settlement where he lives. Ezra makes the traditional signs and says a few words in another language before asking for help, and the settlers accept to let him pass, but only if they leave their weapons behind. C doesn't like it, but she can't take on the mercenaries if Ezra dies, so they hide the weapons in the bushes before they enter the tent. Inside, C and Ezra indulge the leader by hearing his story and the bad music his daughter makes, pretending they enjoy it. They're also offered juice, which they quickly drink because it helps eradicate the dust. Then Ezra asks for a medical kit and perhaps some filter refreshers, and the settlers bring a box. But Ezra is shocked to find gems inside. It turns out that the leader wants to buy C because the settlers lost their mother and he needs a new woman to repopulate. Terrified, C immediately rushes out of the tent, grabs the weapons, and begins running through the forest. A settle chases after her, and when she trips, the guy immediately jumps on her. Suddenly, a noise coming from the tent indicates a fight going on and distracts the guy, so C takes the chance to remove his filter mask and push him away to escape. For many hours, C wanders around without knowing what to do. To make matters worse, when she checks her bag, she realizes there are no filters left. As she walks around, she hears a weird sound and gets ready to shoot, but it turns out it's just a weird, noisy plant on the ground. The more she walks, the harder it is for her to breathe, and for a moment, she thinks she won't survive. Suddenly, she hears Ezra through the comms and follows the noise until she finds a tent in the middle of the forest. As soon as she peeks inside, Ezra pulls her in and tells her to take off her helmet, since she can breathe here. He also offers her some food and surprises her by giving her back the gun before asking for a favor. The infection is spreading, so if he doesn't want to die, they have to amputate his arm. When he swears he wasn't going to sell C to the settlers, she accepts to help. Ezra injects a medicine into his arm to numb the area, then hands C a little electric saw, teaching her about the different levels of intensity so she knows which one to use on skin and which one on bone. While Ezra does his best to withstand the pain without freaking out or passing out, C makes a very quick job of cutting his arm off, always keeping calm. Ezra is shocked by this, so while she cauterizes the wound, C explains she once was on a planet where they sent her inside giant dead beasts to retrieve the organs from inside, because she was small enough not to ruin everything by passing through it. Afterward, they gather as many supplies as possible from the tent, and the duo go out to the forest again. This time, C does chat with Ezra and even tells him her name. She explains that the notebook she carries is her favorite book, which she lost some time ago, and now she's writing down the story from memory. It's a very important novel for her because it's always kept her mood up and gave her hope for the future, even if her father had thought she was wasting time with it. Night has already fallen by the time they make it to the digging site, and the mercenaries are already there. They have their own ship and also a huge man inside a transparent box who has been captured for execution. The mercenaries don't know what he did, they're only paid to bring him here. Ezra pretends to be Daemon, and after a mercenary takes his gun away, he tries to apologize for being late, but the mercenaries keep interrupting him with music or by shooting at the air. When he can finally speak, Ezra makes an offer. He'll accept less pay than what they originally agreed on if the mercenaries take them with them when they leave. Otherwise, they won't dig. At first, the leader refuses, and when C tries to ask at least for parts to fix her own Basan ship, one of the mercenaries pushes her to the ground to threaten her. Ezra isn't scared and reminds them again that only he knows where and how to get the gems out, so the mercenaries agree to lend them the parts. The angry one lets go of C, but also messes with Ezra's filter to make sure he knows who is in charge. Then Ezra begins taking out those bulbous sacks to mine the gems. Unfortunately, he isn't used to working with his left hand, and he keeps messing up, letting the liquid ruin the gems. After a few failed attempts, the mercenary leader calls him out, so C cuts in and tries again. Sadly, she also fails, and the leader cancels the deal. Thus, Ezra uses a tool to hurt the leader on the ankle to make him fall. Then he pushes the guy's face against the ground until he dies. At that moment, the other mercenaries show up, and C manages to grab some of the dangerous liquid before they notice. Ezra tries to pretend it was an accident, but the mercenaries play music again in a tone that makes their ears hurt. When a guard comes closer and notices the wound on the leader's ankle, C throws the liquid on the ground and causes a small explosion that blinds everyone with dirt. As the mercenaries open fire, Ezra and C retrieve the leader's weapon and run to hide in the bushes. Then Ezra shoots one of the guards before he and C run away as another mercenary comes after them. They run into the forest and Ezra discovers they're out of bullets, so they make a plan to ambush the upcoming guard. At that moment, the mercenary plays the music to hurt their ears again and opens fire when she hears them scream in pain. C immediately starts running to create a distraction. But since the mercenary doesn't see her, C comes back and pushes her to the ground before running again. When the mercenary stands up and attacks, she ends up stabbing Ezra instead. And now he's close enough to stab her multiple times with the mining tool until she's dead. C comes back to check on Ezra and shares her filter with him, but he points out he can't make it, so he tells her to grab the mercenary's gun and run. After some hesitation, C grabs the weapon and runs back to the mine, where she picks up a medical kit. There's a final mercenary that tries to shoot her, but it turns out the big guy has escaped from the box and jumps on the guard to kill him. Meanwhile, C runs back to the forest and uses the medical kit to take care of Ezra's wound. Then she drags him back to the mine with her, and while they ignore the big guy standing there, they enter the mercenary's ship and finally leave the moon, reaching the station right before they run out of time. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.